We're in a series through the most famous psalm of the Bible, Psalm 23. It's quoted often. Some of you have it memorized very much. The Lord is my shepherd. What's the next line? Man, I thought you couldn't memorize the Bible. It's good. Lorenzo, it's good to see you. The Lord is my shepherd. I don't need anything else. I don't have anything else that I'm in need of today. Is that true for you? The Lord is my shepherd. I am in need of nothing. I'm allowed to lay down in prosperity. I'm looking forward to my recliner this afternoon. Green pastures. My team kicks off at 1. I don't know about the bad guys, Scott Hubbard, but the 49ers will play at 1. The Raiders, they're done. They played already. That's too bad. They won. Okay. All right. So I get to lay down in green pastures. I'm allowed to enjoy so much. God leads me. I'm led along quiet waters. The Lord does restore my soul, and He leads me in the right paths for the shepherd's honor. He leads me in the right paths for the shepherd's honor. And here's the verse for today. We're working our way through this. Even when I walk, that was a great song, by the way. Thanks. Even when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, even when I walk through the darkest valleys, I will not, it says in the modern translations, it says, I will not fear. But in the words there, it says, I will not fear evil. I shall not fear evil. Everybody say evil. 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 Even when I walk through the valleys, I'm not afraid of bad times happening to me. I'm not afraid of bad times happening to me. Why? Because you're right beside me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. Now, Ryan Bell, I got to tell you, that rod is the word we used to get for in the cowboys in the West. Their guns. That was their authority and their protection and their gun. If you're a modern-day shepherd, you carry a rifle, AK-47, something like that. Anyway, rod, your rod and your staff comfort me. Everybody take a deep, can you do this? Everybody take a deep sigh. Now that's the physical word right there, comfort. It's when everything's okay, I'm going to make it, we're going to make it through, it's okay. So in an act of worship and honor to God, everybody take a deep sigh, the best you can muster right now. Just, how many do that when you get stressed? You go, yeah, I go around. That's that word, comfort. I can take a deep sigh because God's protecting me. He's providing. He's with me. He's watching over me. You prepare a feast for me while my enemies watch. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. Your goodness and loving kindness will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live forever in the house of the Lord. Verse 4, that's the one we're focusing on today. How many would like to have a mountaintop experience? How many would like to have a mountaintop experience today? How many would like to have a mountaintop experience this morning with God? There's a famous mountain in Colorado. It towers 8,000 feet above Colorado Springs. It's called Pikes Peak. It's 14,100 feet above sea level, or above us, Watsonville, because we're kind of like at sea level. Now, you can take the road up to Pikes Peak. You can pay, and you get to go, and you get up there, and you go, wow, what a great mountaintop. Look at that view. But when you ride up, it's kind of like seeing one mountaintop, seeing them all. Right, Deanna? Seen one mountaintops. Wow, look at that view. This looks like other mountaintops I've been on. Now, but if you were to hike up and you took the path up to Pikes Peak, and when you finally got to the top, you'd have a whole nother experience. Am I right? So, do you want a mountaintop experience, or do you just want to be on the mountaintop? Because if you want to have the mountaintop experience, you must go through the valleys. And you must go through the dark valleys, and you must go through, it's said that there literally is a valley of the shadow of death. Now, we associate that with funerals because that's when it's most often read, but it's not all about death physically, but it's going through the darkest, and it says the shepherd, King David, probably knew where that valley was. So he's given the description, this picture about God being God is his shepherd, because he was a shepherd. He understood what that was all about. And in order to get to the high mountain meadows, the experience that they had to go to, they had to go through valleys. So if you want a mountaintop experience, you will go through valleys. True? Personally, I like the end of, I get confused, but there was a movie called Star Wars, originally came out in 1977 or 78. I wasn't born yet, but I got to see it later. Just checking. And I can't, to me it was the first, but it's not the first, it's the, so it was the first movie made, but it's the fourth, I don't know. I think it's renamed now. What's it called? A New Hope. Pastor Ryan studies those things during the week. It's called A New Hope. And at the end, if I recall correctly, they have a great mountaintop experience. And the masses are around, and the heroes are walking through the middle, and we're ready to stand in our seats and go, yeah, wow, is this not great? But they had to go through a lot of dark valleys to get to that ending. And that's exactly the way it is in life. You got to go through dark valleys. So let me just tell you, some of you are in dark valleys, the shadow, darkest valleys today. You walked in, you're in the dark valley, but it's not Death Valley, it's a dark valley. When I was a kid growing up, they had Death Valley days. It was a Western. Anybody remember that? This is not Death Valley, this is dark valleys, and you're passing through. And so you walked in, and you're experiencing valleys in your life, and then some of you are going, I was with my daughter yesterday at college. She told me about some of her peers, and it's like they haven't experienced a dark valley in all their 20 years. You know, she talked about, and because I can talk and nobody knows, and it's okay, and I'm not picking on anybody, and I'm just going, whoa. So she went out to eat dinner with a couple of young men who invited her out to dinner. They picked a nice place. I think, Mike, it was like $30 a plate or something. And these two guys that were with Devaney, they plunked down their $30, of course, made her pay. I said, don't you ever go out with guys like that anymore. Don't do that. And she just looked at him, and one of them, he said, I've never worked a day in my life. The parents just send him money, and he plunks down $30 for dinner. That kid's going to hit some dark valleys. I hope he's ready. There will be a day when it won't be all sunshine. In fact, there's the old proverb that says, sunshine all the time makes a desert. So let me just tell you this morning, some of you are in the valley, but it's good. No, it doesn't feel good, and it's not all right, but it's okay. God knows what he's doing. He knows where you are. Some of you are not in a valley right now, and so you should pay attention today. So, well, I don't care. Sorry, one day you will. When you're in the valley and you're going to go, why is this happening to me? That day will come. That day will come. And then a typical thing, let me just remind you, don't compare your valleys with other people's valleys. You compare valleys And you think nobody's seen the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows. And I just want to tell you, I don't know. And nobody does know the trials and tribulations and temptations and tests that you've gone through. But don't you dare trade them for somebody else. You'd be on the wrong path. What looks like lesser trials over there might kill you. But don't compare them. Don't compare them. So, what do we know about valleys? Let me give it to you quickly. And then I want to ask one of my friends to come and share with you about the dark valley he's going through. What do we know about valleys? Number one, valleys are for, I got the wrong glasses on, so if I hesitate, it's because I'm going bifocal on you. Valleys, I can't even read it. There it is. Okay. It's one of those valleys. Some of you laugh about my sight's just fine. Your valley's coming. What do we know about valleys? Number one, valleys are for sure going to happen to me. Valleys for sure are going to happen to me. So just be an encouragement to somebody next to you and say, you know, you got some dark valleys coming. Go ahead. You got some dark valleys coming. Jesus said, this is Jesus, the master teacher, the Savior. He said, here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows. So some of you have just had a few trials and sorrows. You haven't filled it up yet. Many. Turn to the person next to you and say, many. Say, you're just going through a few right now. Number two, what do we know about valleys? Valleys are not in my forecast. I watched earlier the weather forecast. It kept saying rain for this week. It finally rained some, whatever. Did it rain hard here on Friday? Saturday? Rained on me a little bit. But we try to forecast the rain and forecast sunshine, but valleys never get in the forecast. Like, I'm forecasting that next week I'm going to go into a dark valley. You know, if I knew that was the forecast, I wouldn't keep moving. If you want, it's like, surprise! And did you know that Satan can orchestrate timing that is so precise it would make you think he's magical? Is that true? In Job chapter 1, there was simultaneously things that burst out on Job's life. Hey, this part of the herd, they're gone. These raiders came and took them all. And fire fell and took the rest of the herd. And then, by the way, a wind came in, blew, boom, and all your kids are dead. That was all boom, boom, boom. And it wasn't forecast. It wasn't like, I saw it coming. You didn't see it coming. Surprise, welcome to the dark valley. Number three, valleys are in everyone's journey. Valleys are in everyone's journey. Your Father in the heavens makes the sun shine on both the good and bad people. I hate that. I mean, I can understand shining on me, I'm good. But shining on you, that's another story. You ever have that thought? Come on, does that ever go through your mind? How come it's shining on them? I've been working harder than them. Your Father in the heavens makes the sun shine on both good and bad people. And he sends rain on the ones who do right, and he sends rain on the ones who do wrong. That's what Jesus said. We're in this series called What is God Really Like? I love the songs we sang today. What was that new one we're learning? Love on and loves go on and on. What is that? One thing remains. What is it? Your love, his love never runs out. Did I get that right? Oh, say that. What was it? One thing remains. His what? His love never fails. And what does that mean? He never gives up on who? On you? Yeah. He never gives up on you. Is that the God we serve? Now, I just want to tell you, it's not a soft kind of love. Somebody squishy, he loves me. It's not that kind of, it takes strength to be gentle and loving. And God is the God of strength, and he loves you. So God is for you no matter what. Is that true? Is God for you no matter what? Doug was praying that in his prayer. God is for you no matter what. Is that true? All right, so everybody right here. I've heard this so many times. I wish I had $1 for every time I've heard it. When people are going through dark valleys in their life and they have any awareness that there might be a God or is a God, they say, God is punishing me. Have you ever heard that said? Everybody raise your hand if you've heard that said. What is God really like? That is not the real God. He's not into retribution. He's not getting even with you. He's not, I'm going to let them have it. He's not like I am with my kids. Right? Now, some people go, yeah, but that makes everybody... No, God is a God of love. And man, he lets some things happen because oh man, what am I doing? And then I go, God, what are you doing? He said, I was trying to protect you, but you walked off the cliff. And I'm there. You didn't have to hit the bottom, but now you're there, I'm there. That's how much he loves you, because he gives us the freedom to choose. Does that make sense? So, that if you have any idea that the God of the universe, the Creator, is punishing you, then that is wrong. Everybody say wrong. Wrong. That is wrong. You may have been raised with that, but that is wrong. It's not right, it's wrong. Now, I guess if anybody wanted to take it up with me right here publicly, you could, but it would be embarrassing, you would lose. But if you want to come talk to me afterwards and say, well, I think God's taken out, and does God discipline us? Yes, he does. So don't misunderstand. But it's not punishment time. This is not punishment time. God's not out to, I'm going to get you because you got me. That's not God. So, you got to know that was worth it, and I paused right there. Shouldn't have paused. God, what is God really like? This one thing remains. What? His love. It never fails. It never gives up. It never runs out on who? Turn to the person next to you and say, it never runs out on you, though it should have a long time ago. Number 4, valleys are just for passing through. They're not for camping. Valleys are just for passing through. There is wonderful joy ahead, even though the going is rough for a while down here. It's just for passing through. Even though I walk through the valleys of the shadow of death, even though I walk through, you will walk through. You will walk through. I have walked through a few valleys. You have walked through a few valleys. How many have walked through some valleys? How many are here today? So you made it because you kept walking, right? Walked through. You didn't stop. You walked through. And it came to pass. It will too pass. I love, we have no idea how it's really going to pass and how it's going to be. Keep walking. Go through. Just passing through. Just passing through. I will tell you this. In the dark night of the soul, in the darkest night, how many find dark at night? That's when it's toughest to face the valleys you're going through. I mean, when the sun goes down, I'm grateful it went down, but darkness at night, and then all of a sudden it's like everything caves in on you, like you lose perspective. And you go, ah! Last night, I was here in this building for a few minutes, came through, and I was in that hallway, because I went back that way, because there's a restroom back there. That's why I was back there. And then I turned, and I walked that way. No lights on in here, no lights in the hall, and I'm looking. I can't see a thing. You know, it's like Have you ever felt like you're trying to open your eyes wider, like that will help? You've been there. And I could not, it was dark. And then I realized there's a door with a glass on it behind me, so I just quickly turned around and looked. There was some light coming through the door. I go, okay, I can see again. And that's the way it is at night in our lives when we're going through dark valleys. But we're just passing through. Number 5, valleys are necessary and filled with good intention. That's a long answer, but you got to write that down. Valleys are necessary and filled with good intention. Even though you are temporarily harassed by all kinds of trials and temptations, this is no accident. It happens to prove your faith. Story of Joseph, check it out later, end of his story. Years in prison, unfair judgments against him, sold as a slave, couldn't get any worse. Years and years, and his brothers show up, and he says to them, don't panic, guys. You know, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. So no matter what your dark valley is, and no matter how you got there, God can work for good through it. Jesus, the champion, God bless you, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith, because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross and accepted the shame. In other words, he went through a dark valley, but he did it knowing that there was going to be a mountaintop on the other side. So what do we do? What do we do when we're going through dark valleys? I'll tell you what we do. We do not fear evil. We do not fear evil. And then you're going to say, well, yeah, that's good for you, but how do you do that? I'll tell you in a few minutes, maybe. Let me just confess to you. Sometimes I fear evil. Do you? So it's not like this is a perfect condition. It's like the direction we're going. Sometimes I fear evil. Do you know what evil, that word evil, next year Deanna and some others, they're looking forward to working to do a musical called From the Prince of Egypt, the story of Moses. And in that, do you remember that? Anybody watched that movie cartoon, animation 10 years ago? It's great. So we're going to try and do it next year. And so in that, the Egyptians worship, and they got Steve Martin and Martin Short playing the goofballs, comedians, and they're the priests of Ra. And Egypt worships the god of Ra. That word Ra is the Hebrew word for evil. Evil. So I just give you this. I will not fear evil. I won't fear. That word is just full. I'm not going to fear bad things happening to me. I'm not going to fear natural disasters, earthquakes. I'm not going to fear sickness. This week I went to the doctor. I did exactly as my wife told me I should. Go to the doctor. So all of you husbands in the room, if your wife says you need to go to the doctor, just go. Don't go. Oh, I don't need to go. In fact, I'm afraid of what they'll tell me if I go. And so I went to the doctor because I've been having headaches. And by the way, just write down all your remedies on the communication card. Headaches. I've been having headaches. And I think it's partly related to glasses, because I got glasses, I got prescription. Anyway, I'm telling you that so you don't come later. So I went to the doctor because I've got headaches. And so one of the things the doctor does, besides hit me in the knees, boom, and I got good reflexes, everything's working. I still haven't figured out the one, squeeze my fingers. That's weird. But anyway, the doctor said, look at this spot on the wall and don't look at me. And she took this shiny little light with the little plastic thing on the end and she stuck it right in my eye. And I'm looking straight. She, don't look at me. Okay, and then I looked at the other side, and she said, well, I just want you to know you don't have a tumor. Whew, man, that's what I thought. See, and the point is, some of you have tumors. But we don't have to, God's got it worked out. We're going to make it. If I did have a tumor, what do we do? Okay, let's just take it. Do I have, oh, no, that can't be me. Could be. But evil could be that sickness, that affliction. Evil could be, I love this one, the displeasure of other people. Some of you have been working hard to please other people, and you will never please them. Usually, it's our parents. I will fear no evil, the displeasure of other people because you didn't measure up. Do you know the root word, the root of evil is, I just found this, to spoil by breaking into pieces. To spoil. Or here it is, to make good for nothing. To make good for nothing. So here's another evil. Some of you have made mistakes in your life. Personally, I don't make mistakes. But some of you have made mistakes in your life. I mean, you've made some serious blunders. I mean, you're really messed up. Now listen, you may sit here thinking you're the only person in the room that's really messed up. You got company. Turn to the person next to you and say, we've all messed up. If you had it to do over again, are there some decisions you'd do different? If you could go back and do it over, that's part of the evil. See, some of you think you can't be, one thing remains. What is that? What is that? God's love. God's love never fails. He never gives up on you. But I messed up. You know, I walked out when I should have walked in. I quit when I should have kept going. See, part of the evil you got cooking in you is the guilt you feel for, you know, you're such a mess up. Yeah, when you're going through hell, don't stop. That wasn't from me. You write it down. That's a quote. Corey Thomas. That was Corey Thomas. You quote her, right? You can quote her here, right now. You speak in public, you get quoted in public. Corey Thomas said. So evil can also include the mistakes in my life, but none of them surprise God. There's still good intention he can work through. Now, if some of you are on the other side and you're tempting God, I've done that, I've seen that with people before. Well, I'm just going to do this anyway. I know it's not right, but God's love never gives up. Well, you're right, but you're going to be a wreck. God's still pursuing you. He still loves you, but why? Don't kill yourself here. Well, his love never gives up. Well, that's why he's trying to say, don't do that, stupid. Because his love never gives up. Forgive me for saying, I don't, nobody take it personal. I'm just talking about how many are how many have been stupid sometimes? If I don't know what to think, I what? What was the words to that song? When I don't know what to think, I trust in his truth. Some of you don't have any truth in the head. There's no truth there. So when you don't know what to think, you just do what comes natural. God's going, I love you. Don't do that. You didn't even know he said no. Valleys. That's what we know. I want you to don't fear evil. I want you to welcome my dear friend and one of our pastors. He comes and just shares you about Dark Valley. God's taken him through. Would you give a warm welcome to Pastor Ray York? God bless you, Ray. Did I set you up? You did?
Well, first I have to apologize for some of you who've heard some of this before, so you can just kind of check out for a few minutes. And, oh, you can't, he said. Just take it from somebody, you know, as you get older, you repeat yourself more often. Tell the same stories over and over. Well, let me go back a lot of years, because the first 9 years of my life, my family had a small dairy in the Central Valley near Modesto. And my grandparents owned a small farm next door to us. So it was only about, maybe 75 yards from our house to my grandparents' house. I had an older brother and sister, but they were in school. And my younger brother came along when I was 4.5 years old. So in those younger years, I got to spend a lot of time with my grandparents. I followed my grandpa around the farm, and he made me think that I was helping him. And often I was in my grandmother's kitchen. Some things never change. And she lured me there with cookies and fresh baked custard out of the oven. But Grandma's real motive wasn't to feed me sweets, but it was that we would have one-on-one time. And I had one-on-one time with her, but it was with her Bible. And in that time, she would sit down and teach me different passages of Scripture. And some of those, well, a couple of them just this morning. The 23rd Psalm was one I learned when I was 4 years old, and the 121st Psalm that we sang this morning. And all of those, you know, they were there. And because I was so young, I can still remember them. I don't do so good anymore. But just a side note, it's, you know, for those of us who are grandparents, I didn't say aging, but grandparents, you know, you have great influence because these things happened in those early years, before I started school even. But it was before my 5th birthday but these Psalms were already implanted in my head. Now, there seems to be 3 stages of learning, or learning this 23rd Psalm for me. The first was memory. You know, push the play button and I could recite it. But the second was later on, as I grew and had faith in Jesus Christ, it was by faith that I accepted the words of this psalm as truth. And that was good. I understood that and I believed it. But the third was an experience, the experience that we have when we go through the things that the Word talks about, and then it becomes alive to us. So it was personally now, some of these things I would rather not go beyond phase 2. I like to have them in faith, have them in my heart, but I'm not sure I always want to experience all the things that are out there. Especially when you start talking about the valley of the shadow of death. But God has a purpose for my good and for His glory in all the things that we go through. As many of you know, 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and over a 7-day period, I went from what seemed like excellent health to a place where there was a diagnosis that my survival was even in question. I had a tumor in my kidney the size of a softball, and the doctor said when it get that big, things get out of hand. And it would most likely have spread. And beyond that, there was no treatment for this type of cancer, none whatsoever. Surgery was the only option. And so I was going through this valley of this in the shadow. And over the course of that week, strange things started happening in my body. Physically, things were taking place. And some of you who have gone through these kinds of things, you begin to wonder, what's going on with me? And it seemed like I had every day a new kind of medical test. You know, I was in and out of offices getting scans, getting MRIs, getting one thing after another. And it seemed like the whole world was turned upside down. Now, did I call out to the Lord at that time? Fervently, you bet. Because the doctors could only do a little bit. But I knew that God could do more than them. I think it was 2 nights before my surgery, and I was in bed, and I picked up, it was this Bible, in fact. I picked up my Bible, and Judy said, "What are you reading?" And I'm going, "Well, I'm reading whatever this place where I was." And she said, "Why don't you read it out loud?" Now, when I was reading, God spoke. Now, I didn't hear him with my ears, but it was as real as if he was standing by the bedside that night. And the words that came from where I just by chance had happened to be reading. Now, obviously, I'm saying that kind of tongue-in-cheek because it wasn't by chance. That was just the way things worked out. I've got to find my place on my notes, or I'll start ad-libbing too much. But the message from the Lord was that he was assuring me that I was safe in his care and that he had heard me. Now, after the surgery, the surgeon was surprised that the cancer hadn't spread. All the tests that came back in, all were good and for me. And I had a complete physical recovery. But more important than the physical recovery from that surgery was the work that God was continuing to do in my heart and in my life. I believe these words. I didn't have any problem with that. But he was growing me in my faith, telling me again that he was in control and that I could trust him. Now, we can fast forward 7 years from that time, which would be 5 years ago. In fact, 5 years ago this very month, I was in Oregon on an elk hunt, and the night before I came home, I called Judy to say I'm heading home tomorrow morning, and she said, "Oh, by the way, Dr. Rothman called, wants you to call him back." And I instantly went into a mode of thinking, I don't want to say how I really feel, but I was kind of flippant and saying, "I will call back next week. No big deal." But I knew what he was calling about because I had had some chest x-rays the week before. And when I got back, I was in and out of doctors' offices, medical offices throughout the next several weeks, all kinds, going through the same thing, scans of one sort or another, biopsies, tests. And there were now growths in my lungs. And when I met with an oncologist, December 4th of 2006, the report from the oncologist was that I had metastatic stage 4 renal cell cancer in my lungs. Knowing what I did know about the disease, what I'd read, because you just do those things once you've had some certain disease, I asked my doctor about my life expectancy, and she said I had 6 to 12 months to live. So, by the way, after 6 months, I changed doctors. In all of this, was there concern? There was. But there was also God's peace, that he was with me and that he could be, once again, trusted when I was going through this valley. Over the past 5 years, there's been new developments, new treatments, new medical discoveries. I'm for the second time in a clinical study with some drugs that aren't on the market yet. And so I jokingly say I'm playing the part of a lab rat for a while. But when I go in to see my doctor and I ask, okay, what are the side effects of this new drug? What could it do? And And she, they give you the rundown and the history. By the way, when you go through all of these things, well, let me get to that in a minute. My doctor, when I ask her about these things, she no longer is surprised when I respond better than the other patients she has. And I was wondering about a guy that I had been in a study with a few years ago. He was an assistant vice president at San Jose State, had moved to San Jose because of a certain study that was available that he couldn't get where he was in Washington. And I said, I wonder what happened to Arthur Dunklin. And I thought, the doctors can't tell you, so I got my phone, I went on to Google, and I typed in his name, and I see his name, I see pictures, and he died a year ago that week. And thinking, God has blessed me because some of the guys that I knew aren't here any longer. But the doctor always expects something different from me. And I always tell her, it's God's mercy because of people praying for me. People in this church family praying for me. Now, am I still walking through the valley? Well, there's no medical cure for the disease that I have, and there's also the side effects, as some of you know that have gone through some of these things, the side effects that go along with it. And but you get so you can laugh because sometimes God does some strange things with these things that come along. I had all my life, had straight hair, and I had a friend that I went to school with when I was a kid, and I said, man, if I had wavy hair like him, that'd be kind of neat. And my hair got wavy because of the meds. The other day, the doctor, how they do, you kind of like what you did. They get the thing and say, look straight ahead, and they look, shine the light in your eyes. And I had my glasses off. I said, doctor, what color are my eyes? And she said, blue. And I said, right. Because every time I'd go for any kind of where you'd fill out anything, your driver's license, your passport, what color are your eyes? I'd say, I don't know, what are they? And they'd say, well, they're kind of they're not, well, let's just put down hazel. And now I have blue eyes. Is that strange? So it's a little easier now. Well, I've learned another thing. God gives us a sense of humor, and you need to have it when you go through a lot of things in life. I'm sure that we know that we can trust the Lord with everything we're going through. I know that God is with me through the valley and through the shadows, and He's teaching me not to fear. In fact, one of the things I've told a few people, I have cancer that's incurable, but I'm not dying of cancer. I just happen to be living with it. And that's really it. Well, let me just close with and God gets all the glory for that. Sometimes in the evenings, I kick back and relax, and I'll turn on Dish Network. It's channel 396. And a couple of you know what it is. And I'll watch a program that's hosted by Jim Shockey, right? Okay, Bob knows. And in some of there's all kinds of sponsors for the program, and the ones that give more money get a little more time, I guess. And one of them is a company that makes these all-terrain amphibious vehicles called Argo. And he will talk about his Argo, and he'll finish by saying this: I trust my life to my Argo, and you can too. Well, right? Isn't that exactly what he says? Well, I'd like to say it this way: I trust my life to God and His promises, and you can too.
I'd like to invite all of you to stand with me. And here's the invitation. I'm going to invite anybody that wants to come down to the front in just a minute. So, are you going through the valley of the shadow of death? Are you going through? Whatever it might be the displeasure of family, it might be sickness in your body, it might be financial, it might be your own mistakes you've made, but you know you're going through. The shadow, the valley of the shadow of death. The core belief we have in being here together on a Sunday morning is that there is a God. He exists. He's a great God and He's a good God. Where do shadows come from? How do you get a shadow? And ultimately, the light we know in our physical world comes from the sun. There's lots of shadows around you today because there's lights coming. There can only be a shadow if there's a light. You say, oh, that sounds pretty profound. Here's my point. A lot of people will tell you God doesn't exist. If God doesn't exist, why are there shadows in your life? Not just physical things, but deep within you. There's wounds in your soul and there's a desire for something more. If God doesn't exist, then why are there the valleys of shadows or darkest valleys? The only reason that there are valleys is because there is a God who exists. And the evidence of His existence is that there are shadows in your life. Otherwise, you wouldn't look up for the light, right? Those who come to God must believe that He exists. There are people in this room, I'm grateful you're here, but you don't believe God exists. I'm just saying, have you gone through a valley? That's evidence that God exists. Because deep inside, you cared when you went through that valley. You wanted out of that valley. Where'd that come from? Because you know there must be something better ahead. So, I will fear no evil. Why? Because God is with me. You know, God's been with you whether you even noticed Him or not. And I'll tell you, except in rare instances, God does not fight for your attention. But He's always been with you. So, if you're going through the valley of the shadow of death for whatever reason today, in this week, in this season of your life, in this life, and you'd say, I believe God exists and He is with me. I invite you, the moment Deanna begins to sing, I want to invite you just to all come stand together at the front. If God is for us, who can be against us? God's for you. That's what we said, right? That's what you believe. He restores my soul. He leads me in the right paths for His honor. And all of a sudden I find myself walking through the valley of the shadow of death. How did that happen? And as I'm going through, He wants me to realize He's with me, that He exists. The fact that you stand together with other people should be some revelation that there is a God and He cares about you. So would you take the hand of somebody near you? I'd like to invite everybody to do that, because just think of the picture of, I will fear no evil because you are with me. And now, as a physical expression of an eternal and invisible God, there's somebody with you. Our Father in heaven, you exist. And before you made the heavens and the earth, you had us in mind and had us as a focus of your love. This day, may we realize that you are the Good Shepherd. May we realize our Father in heaven's heart, your heart, the Father's heart of forgiveness for my mistakes, the Father's filter that you will not allow anything to happen to us that you cannot see us through. Your focus, that you're working out something greater. You want to get the best that is in us to come out for the glory of God, that you are the good shepherd. And Jesus, you said, if we being evil, bad, particularly fathers, know how to give good gifts to our children, how much more will our Father in heaven give the Holy Spirit, the Comforter, to those who ask? We invite you, Holy Spirit, into our lives as we walk through these valleys. They will come and they will go, but you are always with us. We believe that, we reveal that by our presence and our being together on this Sunday morning. Thank you, God. You are good. You are great. You are powerful, and you are personal. Thanks for being with us. In Jesus' name.